All right, so for section 0.3, the main thing that you're going to notice that's different is, like you can see for number 1, there's a 2 in the front right there. For number 2, there's a 3 in the front, right? For number 3, there's a 3 in the front. For 4, there's a 2 in the front. So you can see in the very front of the squared term, there is a number now. Not just a 1, but there's a number there. Just to kind of take a sneak peek here, how many problems do you guys have? You guys have 8 problems to do, so we'll try doing 4 for you guys. 3 or 4, we'll see, okay? So we're going to have to talk about factoring using the X method, but remember you have to divide when your A value is not a 1, okay? So we're going to do the even ones like we usually do, and let's not forget to divide by that A term, which is 3 for us for number 2. So let me write this down for us, 3p squared minus 4p minus 15. Okay? Now, I'm going to have to use the X method. This is a trinomial, right? 3-term polynomial. So trinomial. And we're going to factor it. So we'll use the X method. Remember, your ABCs, if you want to list them, your A is 3, your B is negative 4, and your C is negative 15. Okay? You don't have to list them. Remember, usually I use the green for us whenever I'm just kind of putting thoughts on the side, right? Things that you don't need to do necessarily. It might be helpful, but you don't have to do it. So on the very top of that X, I'm supposed to multiply A times C. So A times C is a negative 45. Okay? On the bottom, I'm supposed to put a negative 4. All right, so I need to find the factors of 45, okay, and whatever those two factors are that I use for 45, they need to multiply to 45, and then they need to add up to 4. So let me list the factors of 45. Okay, 1 times 45, right? 3 times what? That's 15. That's 45. 5 times 9. And that's it. Those are all my factors of 45. 1 times 45, 3 times 15, 5 times 9. Which one of those two combos there will multiply to a negative 45 or to a 45 and add up to a 4? A 5 times a negative 9. So let's see. A positive 5 and a negative 9. So 5 times a negative 9 is negative 45. So that's good. And 5 minus 9 is negative 4. So perfect. There we go. We use this little combination right here, the 5 and the 9. Okay. I always like to write my factors like that in groups so that I know which two go together. By the way, if you ever have a hard time finding factors, you can always Google it. I actually just did this yesterday with my daughter. She had to find all the factors for 484. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. So I just typed it in Google, factors of 484, and it told me all of them. Okay? The only bad thing about it is that it lists them in a line instead of in pairs. So you have to kind of pair them up yourself later. But it just listed them all like straight on in a line. But not a big deal. They did the hard part for me. I could figure out the pairs. So I prefer doing it like this. I put them in pairs, 1 and 45, 3 times 15, right? That way I know which ones go together. So anyway, now that we're done with that, usually I was supposed to say, okay, circle this, circle that, right? But I don't want to do that because since my A term is a 3, I have to divide by it. So let's divide by 3. Now notice I cannot divide 5 by 3, so then this one is done, okay? That one's finished. But I can divide negative 9 by 3. That comes out to a negative 3. And there's my other answer, okay, for this X method. So let's write down our solution here. My variable is a p, so p plus 5 over 3. P minus 3. But remember, I don't want you guys to have any fractions, so you got to take that denominator. that over 3 part, and you guys have to push that over here. Okay? Take the bottom, move it up, right? So, 3p plus 5, p minus 3. This is my answer. 3p plus 5, p minus 3. So if I go back, let me zoom out just a bit. My answer is going to be C. 3p plus 5 and p minus 3. So these problems are very similar to what we did on Monday. The only difference is at the very end, you're going to have to divide by your A term. Now, you're actually supposed to always divide by your A term, but when A is equal to 1, dividing by 1 is useless, right? Nothing happens. So we don't worry about it. But when it's not equal to 1, then we need to worry about it. Any questions on this one? Question number 2? So if you do, just let me know. But remember, dividing, that's the main step here. So let's look at question number 4. So let me rewrite it. 2b squared plus 5b minus 12. My ABCs here. A is a 2, B is a 5, C is a negative 12. Again, not necessary, but I recommend it just to have it there so you know what you're multiplying. Like I told you guys, one of the biggest reasons why I was always bad at math in high school is because I think I didn't want to do the extra steps. I wanted to do everything in my head, right? So I get lost a lot. So now I write out my ABCs just so that I don't get lost. I know what my numbers are, right? I used to do word problems. I used to do them in my head. And my brother's like, why aren't you drawing pictures? And I'm like, because it takes more time. He's like, draw a picture. It'll make more sense. And it would. I just was lazy, right? So I told you guys that my laziness sometimes I think attributed to the fact that I was not liking the subject. So once I got over that, things started making more sense. So anyway, on this x method, we're going to multiply a times c. So 2 times negative 12 is a negative 24. And on the bottom, we're going to put a 5. Okay, that's my b value. So factors of 24 that give me a 5. Okay, factors of 24 that give me a 5. So let me just write them down right here. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Those are all my factors of 24. Which combination will give me a 5 when I add or subtract them and multiply to 24? A negative 3 and an 8. So I'm going to use this combination right here. 3 and 8. Okay, because 3 times 8 is 24. 8 minus 3 is a 5, right? So let's see. So a negative 3 and a positive 8. Negative 3 times a positive 8 is negative 24. Negative 3 plus 8 is 5. So we're good. We got it. Now remember, you got to divide, right? And the number I'm divide by is what? By 2, my A term, right? You got to divide by your A term. So I'm going to put over 2, over 2. Notice the negative 3/2 cannot be simplified anymore, so that's done. On the right side, though, that will simplify to a positive 4. Okay? So now that I have that, let me write my answers here. B minus 3/2, B plus 4. But remember, we don't want fractions, so get that denominator of 2 and move it up. So that's going to become 2b minus 3, b plus 4. And your options or your answer for that would be A. So let me do this. I'm not going to do 4 problems for you guys. I'm going to only do 3 because I think you're good. So try number 6. Excuse me. I got to drink some water here. All right, so we figured out, or we set up the problem a little bit, right? Our ABCs are right there, -4, -22, and -30. I wrote out my problem. I did the X method. Let me show you what occurs in this type of problem, and you might see something a little different, okay? But I'm just curious, did anybody find an answer for this, A, B, C, or D? Did anybody find an answer, but then you noticed that it wasn't there? Okay, so some of you guys are saying like, yeah, I found something, but it wasn't there, right? So let's see why that is. A times C is 120. Okay, so 120. And down here, -22. What two factors of 120 multiply to 120 but add up to -22? Does anybody have them? All right, -12 and -10. Good, those are two numbers that multiply to 120 and they add up to -22. So excellent. I'm supposed to divide by -4. So all right, dividing by -4. I get +3. Okay, and then this becomes a positive 5/2. Okay, so when I'm going through this and I see my solutions that I got, I'm going to circle these and let me rewrite my answers here. I get x is +3, x plus 5/2. Okay, so if I fix this, I get x plus 3, 2x plus 5. But then I look at my answers and I don't see anything that works, right? Like I kind of see something that works. This one right here looks very similar, but it has something extra. It has a -2. Now, why is that? Okay, why is it that it has a -2? Well, the reason why it doesn't match perfectly is look at the original problem. Was there something that I could have factored out initially from the original problem? Okay, from this right here, could I have factored something out originally? Is there a number that they have in common? Actually a -2, but 2 is correct, but you could actually have taken out a -2, right? And if we would have done that, so the reason why I kind of let you guys try this out, because I wanted you to see, number one, what you did in terms of steps was correct. If you got that answer right there, you did the steps right, but unfortunately we didn't factor out first, right? So what they wanted you to do, and that's why I'm going to do an extra problem with you guys, just to make sure you get this. They wanted you to factor, okay? They wanted you to get -4x squared minus 22x minus 30, and they wanted you to take out a -2, which would have left you to a 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. Let me make sure I did that right. So that would be a 2. That'd be a -22. That'd be a -30. So that's what they would like you to have gotten. Okay? Now, they would want you to factor this out. So A times C would be 30, right? 2 times 15. And this would be 11. So factors of 30 that give you 11. What can we think of? 30 is 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, What else? 5 times 6. Do any of those give you 11 when you add them or subtract them? Yeah, the 5 and the 6. Right, these right here. So you would do positive 5, positive 6. Now, are those my answers? Not really, because you have this 2 in the very front that you got to divide by. So let's divide by 2. Notice this one does not divide, but this one does. That's a positive 3. So your answer is, so remember that negative 2 has to drop. X plus 5 halves, x plus 3. Notice how this part right here and this part right here pretty much match, right? The only difference is that negative 2 that you were supposed to factor out. That's the only difference. Okay? So your final answer would have been negative 2, 2x plus 5, x plus 3. This is the answer they're looking for, right? B. So the first 4 problems in your homework, well, if you did them in order, right? The first 4 problems in your homework are going to be very straightforward. They're not going to have anything in common. You don't have to factor anything out. Some of the problems that they're going to show up near the end are going to have things in common. A number in common, maybe a letter in common. You got to factor it out first, then you'll be able to do the work. Okay, make sure you ask yourself, do they have a common factor? All right, so we'll do one more problem just to make sure that we kind of give you 2 practices to do this. Okay, because these are the tougher ones. So let's try this one, and then we're done. So 9x squared minus 48x plus 48. What can I factor from that? A 3, right? I can factor out a 3. All right, so let's do that. Let's take out a 3. 3, that's going to be 3x squared minus, what is that, 18? No, 16 plus 16. Okay, notice I'm going to have to factor this right here. Remember that there's an a term of 3, so I'm just going to kind of double underline it right there. So let's go ahead and factor that. So 3 times 16 is 48. And right here, negative 16 goes on the bottom. So let's look at the factors for 48. What do we have? 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, yep. And what else? I think I have one more. 6 and 8, right? But yeah, 4 and 12 is what works, because 4 and a 12 can give you 16 if you add or subtract them, right? So which way do I use my 4 and 12? What do I make them? All right, negative 4, negative 12, okay? Remember, you got to divide by 3, okay? That double underline 3 that I have right there. Let's divide by 3. On the right side, it becomes negative 4. On the left side, it stays a fraction. So you're going to drop this 3 down because it's still there. Rewrite for your answers. So it would be x minus 4/3, x minus 4. And then since you have a denominator, move it up, and then you're done. So 3x minus 4, x minus 4. And this would be your answer. So the last 2 problems that we've done have basically just been reminders to always check to see if you have common terms. Like, can you factor something out? Because if you can factor it out, it becomes easier. Okay? Notice how in this x method, my number on top was a 48. But if I would have never factored, I would have to have multiplied 48 times 9. Okay? Which is almost 450. Think about that. Like, what factors for 450 or whatever, right? Something that big. That's a lot of numbers. I don't want to do that. So to make it easier, I'll factor out things that they have in common. Okay? So factoring out numbers will make your work simpler. Okay? So always check, can I take a number out? And if you can't, that's okay, then just do the work. But if you can, make sure you take it out, because or else your work is going to become a lot more difficult. Okay? So I'll stop right there.